an old story of Divine Mother. It's about that middle-aged couple who had a small orchid farm on the big island of Hawaii. But they'd been coming to visit Divine Mother on Oahu for many, many years. But they always sat at the back of the room. They never spoke to anyone, always remaining quiet and leaving immediately after the meditation. But in her inimitable way, one day Divine Mother pointed to them and said, "You have something to say." And both of them babbled together. We're getting old, and we have no children, and we don't have any social security or insurance. What's going to take care of us? Divine Mother said rather forcefully, "The trouble with you is you don't have faith and trust in God." The next time they came to Oahu, they were totally changed. They were alive. They sat at the front. They interacted with people. They had life. But we can ask the question, what did Divine Mother really mean? We could ask ourselves, what is it that's there for us to have faith and trust in when all trace of a God has been erased? There's a story about a man called Yusef. He'd been in the rough and tumble of life, you might say. He knew what it was like to, as we would put it perhaps, to live in the arena where there was give and take and competition and greed and all of those other things that constitute life at that level. But Yusef came to a point in his life where it seems that it had all played out, and he made the conscious decision that he was going to surrender. Because wasn't it said that God would provide? So he did just that. He gave up, he walked away from life as he knew it, and he set off on the road, trusting that life would provide his needs. So it so happened that in the course of this journey he came to a place where the road ran parallel to a river. And he sat on the side of the road contemplating the road, and he saw many travelers who were passing by. There were those nobles who came by in their well-capacious carriages, and when they saw his venerable turban, they would wave to him to acknowledge him. And then there were the artisans and those who would come and go to the village to ply their trades and so forth. And then the farmers. But as it happened, none of them stopped to offer him even a piece of bread and cheese. So after a day, his stomach began to grumble. But then, turning away from the road, he turned to face the river. And even though 3 days had passed and his stomach was still grumbling and feeling empty, he looked at the river and saw the dancing ripples as the river wended its way. Then suddenly his eye spied something floating in the current. And so he waded out and picked up what was a packet. It weighed about 3/4 of a pound. And when he opened it up, the wonderful aroma of honey and sesame seeds and almonds assailed his nose. It was Halva. So, fulfilling himself on this blessed package, he felt that something was forming in him that gave him some assurance that indeed what had been a glimmering for him was so. And he decided that he would watch every day, and if the same thing happened, then he would be assured that you could say that he was on track. And so it was. Every day the puzzle would float down the river, and he would partake of this delicious halwa. But then it dawned on him that really he had to find the source of this. He found that he had to find the truth of where did it come from? What was the source of this life-giving sustenance? So he started to wend his way along the river, and as he progressed, every day the packet of halwa would float and he would pick it up until he turned a corner in the river, and he found that the river had widened to a very great degree, and there in front of him, in a small island in the middle of the river, was a huge castle. And as he looked and pondered on this, he knew that this was the source of his halwa. And he thought to himself that if he could gain access to this castle, he would find the source, the truth that he sought. But just as he was pondering what his next move would be, he espied an old dervish coming his way. Matted hair, patched work robe, straw sandals on his feet, and of course they exchanged greetings. And the old hermit asked Yusef, what are you on about? Where are you going? And Yusef said, I'm seeking the source of truth, and I believe it to be found in that castle over there. Well, the hermit said, I am on a mission now, on a pilgrimage, but you obviously don't know what this castle is about. But in any event, man can only understand truth according to the place he is at. But in any case, I can give you a wazifa that will allow you to gain access with the help of all the forces of the spirit world and nature, if you dare. But of course Yusef said, please, 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 tell me. So the old hermit muttered a few sayings which Yusef caught on to, and then the hermit went on his way, leaving Yusef to sit again. And as he was instructed, Yusef practiced assiduously what it was that the old hermit had taught him. And then, just at the moment when Yusef was pondering what next now? Suddenly he found himself in a space that he had never been in before. And there, in that space, he found that there was a jinn, one of those beings, are they, that dwell in those worlds that are only visited occasionally by man in the state that he is at the moment. But this being, as we can call it, was king of the jinns. And he said, because of your wazifa, your calling, I am here to do your bidding. So Yusef said, I want to have access to that castle so that I can learn truth. The king of the jinns also confirmed, man can only know truth according to his ability to understand. But know that this castle is inhabited by a princess who has been incarcerated there by a man who she refused to marry. So he has placed guards, challenges around the castle that make it impenetrable for the moment. But with our aid, the aid of myself and all those that do your bidding, it can be assailed. And so it was. Those barriers that have been erected by man were challenged by the beings of the other worlds, so called. And soon Yusef found himself in the presence of the princess. She thanked Yusef, thanked him profusely for breaking down the barriers that impeded her from returning to her father and her family, and stated, what can I do for you to repay you for doing this? And Yusef stated, I come to find the source of the halwa, the food of life that has been provided to me each day from here. And she said, that halwa is the residue of my daily bath. The honey, the sesame, the almond is what I use to cleanse myself each day. But for you, it is halwa, the food of life. Ah, said Yusuf, now I understand the meaning of truth. Truth, according to man's ability to understand. So the other day I read a saying, I no longer have any aha moments. I only have, why the fuck didn't I get it before? Does that ring true for us? Where can our mind rest when all trace of the illusion of there being something has been erased? What is it that's there on which the mind can rest and use those words, faith and trust, again, but not as an aha